I chose that song because it has this kind of cicada droning, growing sound that sounds like an accordion to me. But it strikes me listening, first of all, listening with headphones, I should do that more often because it just, the sound is fantastic. Um, but that's not, I try to use lounge music. That's kind of lounge adjacent, I guess. But it really reminded me, there's a couple of sections in there that reminded me of Little Dragon. And so I mentioned this on this stream before, but Little Dragon's lead singer, her name's Yukimi Nagano, and she used to she used to sing for a lot of different, for a few different lounge acts, I guess. And her current band, I like it. I liked her when she did stuff for Coop, and she did stuff for, what was it, Air? She might have done Air. Anyway, she was doing all kinds of different things, but I liked her when she did that. I also like her in Little Dragon, but that one part of that song really reminds me of a Little Dragon song, and the title escapes me at the moment. Anyway, hello. My name's John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology, the best kind of psychology. I'm a 12-year user, about probably 12 years of R. And for those 12 years, I've been using R the way most people do, which is analyses and data visualizations. But I'd say 9 or 10 years ago, I also stumbled across this. I didn't stumble across it. A student actually introduced me to Papaja, and Papaja was to me at the time, it was just an R package, and packages extend the capabilities of base R. In this particular package, it facilitated the creation of APA formatted papers. And so, me being a professor and doing research and writing up the results of those research projects, that was kind of a revelation to me. I'm like, what? You mean I can do the whole thing from within my scripting environment? I can write my whole paper where I'm doing my analyses? And the wonderful, awesome student who I still work with, and he's still wonderful and awesome, he's like, yeah, just try this out. And so that kind of changed. It changed the way I work and the way I look at work and how I do work. And so here, 9, 10 years later, it's kind of consumed me a little bit. Like, I think this is something that I'm going to continue pounding the pavement for, and thinking it's really, really important in terms of structuring your work. If you're doing data sciencey kind of stuff, or if you're incorporating analyses and visuals into things like reports and presentations, there's no reason not to do it within the same platform that you script those analyses within. The support that we have right now to do this, it's never been greater, and it's getting we're getting more and more support, and the community seems like, I don't know. I guess I don't have a good sense of that. I would hope that the community of people that are doing this are growing a little bit. But I've always had this kind of, it seems to me like there's a bit of a barbell here with people that do this. There's really high end, top level contributors that are making things and doing things. And then there's people who haven't heard of this and definitely don't want any more to do with their scripting environment than they already have to do. And what I'm trying to do is kind of connect those two a little bit. It's a weird space, but I appreciate you being here. We have on this channel, we're up to 135 subscribers. I'm so excited about that. Thank you, people. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully, most of you are here for the R stuff and the Quarto stuff and the R Markdown stuff, and not so much the library of lounge music that I have going on this channel as well. That kind of hits me in the back of my mind every once in a while when I think about the people that are popping by and participating in this. I'm so appreciative. And then I'm wondering, well, I, I hope they're here for the R and for the weekly things that we do, and not just the silly music that I play at the beginning of each session. Okay, I'm rambling a bit because tonight's session, I think, it's going to be fairly light, and I don't see us taking up the full hour, so I'm probably going to be a little more verbose than even normal. I'm going to allow myself to wander and meander a little bit more. There, everybody clicks off now. Um, so anyway, so I'm here every week, just kind of promoting, being a resource for this way of structuring your work. I would love for everyone, or at least more people in my field, to at least be aware of this as an option as they're doing things like papers and presentations. And certainly, people specifically in my field, an applied field of psychology, where people are out there um, condensing and summarizing and processing data, when they're communicating that data, I hope that they're considering these sorts of work processes, not just for the data analysis again, but for the larger project. And that's what we're here promoting, is structuring your work such that you can do it all within the same environment. We've used RStudio, we've used Positron, we've used VS Code, we've used Jupyter Lab, we've used one called Pluto. So we've chucked out quite a few different IDEs. Keep going back to RStudio. I think that's what most of you are probably using. It's the environment I'm most comfortable in as well. We've done Spider, I think, on this weekly session as well, but we keep kind of going back to RStudio. So hopefully that makes it a little more applicable and germane for what you're doing in your own work. But I'm going to be here every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern, and I'll hang out for about an hour. And the reason I'm doing this live, there's a bunch of reasons I'm doing it live. I want to show mistakes when I make them. I kind of want to show process of going through and finding stuff and trying to figure out capabilities. But I also want to be a resource if anyone wants to do this and maybe you aren't sure how to get started, or there's some trepidation with something. So there can be some obstacles for sure to adopting these sorts of practices. But I want to be available if anyone's out there and they want someone to bounce some ideas off of or just ask questions. So that's the priority. And I'm literally hanging out here for an hour every week live. It's always going to be live. And we're using this metaphor of an academic office hour. That is, if you want, come on by and interact with me, and we can try to work on things together. Now, I've said in the past that I'm kind of used to, as a professor, not my office hours not being very popular. I appreciate everyone that's popping by. What I mean by that is I mean engaging with back and forth with questions. So that's all I mean when I say I'm kind of used to students not popping their head into my office and asking questions. But in the absence of those questions being asked, what we're doing is we're checking out kind of focused features and capabilities of structuring your work this way. And so we'll take little tiny things. We'll look at fonts. So how do you incorporate fonts? We'll take a look at different types of products that you can create. Maybe you want a slide. We'll take a look at that. Maybe you want to make a paper. We'll take a look at that. Tonight, what we're going to look at is something called, I don't know if this is the technical term, but I'm calling it accordion folding. And this is where some content might be partially hidden, and you need to interact with it in order to see what the full element is in terms of the content itself. And so there's a extension, something called an extension, that facilitates that capability using Quarto, which is the software that we've been using most frequently and that I use to make these slides. These slides are available if you want to access them. I encourage you to do so. Please do so. I put them together thinking that other people might find these useful as a resource. There's hyperlinks embedded throughout. And there's clipboards of script as well that you can take and copy and hopefully reproduce what I have if you're interested in reproducing, not because anything I did is great, but because it's a good starting point to just tweak and adapt and alter to whatever your desire is in terms of what you're trying to create. So there's a link in the comments to these slides that you're looking at right here. There's also a link in those comments to a tutorial that will walk you through the creation of a report. It's something called a technical report, and that's just a report that documents the creation of something that you've done. Again, it's focused on a topic that means something to me, but that's immaterial. You should be able to just walk through and then again swap out what I have in there for stuff that's much more interesting, which is the stuff that you like to do. I'm sure that's more interesting than my kind of boring psychological measurement and assessment stuff. It's even for someone that's into it. I acknowledge that it's not the most interesting topic in the world. Okay, so because we look at these topics in an on a kind of an unscripted, unstructured, open-ended manner, every week we before we get to the new topic, we do a recap, a rehash, a representation of what we learned last week. So we need a transition into that. We can't just jump into that. We need a transition. So Mr. Bullwinkle J. Moose, what happened last week?
Last time you remember, Colonel McCornpone, editor of the Frostbite Falls Picayune Intelligence, sponsored a treasure hunt to boost sales of his newspaper.
Gee, a pot containing $1 million.
In Confederate money, of course.
Plus a genuine Stearns Knight runabout.
The 1910 model, completely renovated.
Renovated?
2 new inner tubes, and we polished the brass.
And here's our first clue, Bullwinkle.
The Picayune pot can now be found buried 6 foot underground.
But where, Colonel McCornpone?
That's the puzzle, Rocky.
So our heroes set to work to dig in all the likely places, only to find that everybody else in town had the same idea.
How about digging right here, Bullwinkle?
Good guess, buddy, but I was here first.
How about right over here?
Right over where, Jack?
It's no use, Bullwinkle. Everybody else is digging in the most likely spot.
Okay, so last week, and they're off there on their new adventure now. So they, apparently, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to look back over the course of the last couple of weeks if you really want to find out what's going on there with Rocky and Bullwinkle. But so last week, what we did was we built a website, and this was a little. I guess I had a personal motive to do this. So I'm in a band, and the band was talking about putting up a website, and so I said, you know what, I can put up a website, I'll do it for us. And not only that, but we'll go ahead and let me make sure my connection is still good here because my music just stopped, and that's a little unusual. Yeah, I think we're okay. And so I said, I'll go ahead and do it. Not only that, but we'll do it live. So we'll just create a website from scratch here on this weekly session. And that's what we did. And so in terms of if you're interested in doing this, especially through our studio, so through our studio, there's a process that facilitates this. And that process is to use kind of a template website or a boilerplate website or the bare bones framework of a website that our studio will provide for you. Now, the easiest way to do this is to create a project. And so projects, as I look back on my career as a professor trying to help students learn R, I really wish early on I would have introduced students to the project way of structuring your work, because one of the it sounds silly, but one of the biggest difficulties always trying to teach a class of 20 to 30 students how to use this was just finding where stuff is. They would get lost with it, not even just an R issue or R studio issue, but just a basic computer literacy issue. And so if you work within a project folder, that kind of obviates some of that. It should take care of some of that confusion that students are going to have in terms of just where is stuff. And so certainly when you're working with either a book or a website, you're going to want to work within a project directory as well. And the main reason for that is because these books and websites, by the way, Quarto, the software that we're using for this, it basically considers a book and a website to be essentially the same thing. So really, as you're building them, they look the same from our perspective as people who are structuring these. But the way in which they are structured is, if you think about a single Quarto document, it's called a QMD file. That's the 3-letter extension on the end of the file name itself. Similar to a docx on the end of a Word document or an XLSX on the end of a Excel document. We have a QMD on the end of a QMD document. And at the top of those QMD documents is something called a YAML. And the YAML is the metadata. It describes what you want the document to look like. It describes all kinds of stuff that you want to apply to the document as a whole. Well, with a book or a website, The structure of it is going to be determined by multiple QMDs. So you're going to have a QMD for chapter one, you're going to have a QMD for a contact us page on a website, so on and so forth. And so the YAML information kind of transitions from being important within the individual document to let's just take it and make it its own file. So you have one overarching YAML specification. Within each of those individual QMDs, you can also do a little tweaking with the YAML. The YAMLs are still operative, but there is also this thing called an overarching YAML. And that's the main thing that you're going to really want to pay attention to within a website or a book. And if you go through the RStudio walkthrough in terms of the wizard to help you build a website, it's going to give you an example underscore Quarto YAML file. So this is the file that really is crucially important in terms of the structure of your website and things that little tweaks that you might want to include on your website. So what you're looking at here in terms of my file space, this is a little bit, this has been added to a little bit in terms of what the wizard provides. The wizard provides the underscore Quarto YAML, it provides the index.qmd, and it provides the styles.css file. The image folder I created, the discography and the calendar, we created those as well for different pages. Now, my recollection is the RStudio walkthrough actually gives you a couple of QMDs. So either the discography or the calendar, I probably changed the name of that from, it was probably called something like introduction and I changed it to calendar or discography. But we'll get to those in just a second. So you're going to want to, if you're building a website, you're going to want to go through the wizard and create a new project. Now, one of the things I put my version and build of RStudio here because I don't know if this is just me and what I have in terms of my computer, but I was a little surprised last week that the option of a template website was only available through one of the paths on the new project kind of path. So let me show you what I mean here. I'm going to open up RStudio, and if you want to create a website again within a new project or within a project directory, the options here, I'm going to go new project, and what I'm speaking kind of poorly about is the website template in terms of pre-populating for you files that you can take and play with. That's only going to be available if you use this new directory option, the first option. Then we see a Quarto website here. If we chose either of the other two options, as part of the walkthrough, we're not going to have that template available. So that was something that I wasn't aware of until last night. And so that's all we're really focused on this tab right here where we say project setup. In addition to making sure you do this within a project folder, I also wanted to just communicate that you may not find the template files that you want unless you go through that particular sequence. And I'm not sure if that's always been that way or if it's only on the version of RStudio that I have. You can see I probably haven't updated it as frequently as I probably should. I've been better with R in terms of updating R, but the IDE itself, RStudio, I haven't been as good about staying on top of. So bad kulas. Sorry about that. The Quarto file itself. The Quarto file is super important. This controls the content. It controls the content and the look and appearance of the content. One of the things that, so what you're looking at, this Quarto file is a little different from what we ended with last week. So what we ended with last week, I decided that I wanted to work on it a little more. And in terms of moving forward, the hosting site that we're going to have for this, because it's going to be live and we'll keep it live and we'll use it as a band. As far as I know, I think the other two people in the band are okay with that. But I decided to move it from the Posit Connect Cloud hosting site to GitHub, which is where the slides are hosted that you're looking at right here. And if you want to access them, they're there. Just my workflow itself, the way I have my computer and everything set up, it's a little easier It's a little quicker. It's a little more consistent with the way I do everything else, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. Um, I wanted to host it on a different site, and because of that, sorry, I think I might be getting the hiccups. And because of that, I had to change a few things in the underscore Quarto YAML. Now, the big thing that I had to change was where the actual rendered HTML files go. And GitHub Pages, the capability on GitHub that really makes it easy to publish stuff, it wants to look for this information in a particular spot. And so I didn't have to, but this is something that I have done in the past with things that I host, is I tell Quarto that I want the information that's rendered. I want it to go not in the current directory, but in a different directory or a subdirectory, and one called docs. And so that just makes publishing easier. That if you're publishing your website to Posit Connect Cloud, you don't need to do that. If you're publishing to a different site, you may want to do something like this. I did also add some, sorry, I did also add some content here in, no, this is the same. I'm sorry. So the navigation content and the QMDs that are being pulled to pull content for the website should be the same as what we did last week. What's different is I put some social media links on there, and the social media links are controlled through a YAML option or field called tools, and it's really slick. It's really pretty straightforward. There's a lot of help online that help you figure out how to actually do this. But this is the right hand kind of nav bar stuff that appears, and so we're going to check out that site in just a second. But I put a GitHub link on there if anyone wants to go and report an issue, or if they want to see how we created it. I think obviously, if you watch this for any weeks, you know I'm a major component of sharing kind of what you've done with other people, so they have something to start with and jump off with. So there's a link to the source code there for sure. I put Facebook and Twitter or X and YouTube on there as well. Um, I also put a footer across the website. So on every page, there's a footer that says the band's name's Kitty Wampus. So I said no. I don't know. I said something silly. We'll take a look at it in a second. I don't. The scroll is a little wonky. So how do I get back? How do I get back? Well, this is something we could check out. This is kind of new to me. Is this scrolling to the right and not being able to scroll to the left? I was just had an issue with that. But the page footer we'll check out. There is there are a bunch of options here. One option is just, do you want a little line separating the footer from the rest of the content on your website? True, it just means yes. And then you can choose where stuff goes in terms of center, left, and right. And I have different content on each of those. You can hyperlink to things really easily. So this href just means what's the hyperlink that you're interested in. And I've used it, you'll see I used it on the social media links, but I also used it kind of self-referentially on the website from anywhere on the website, you can click on contact us and that will take you to a contact page. I also changed the font. So we didn't do this last week, but I made it into kind of a more fun font instead of just Arial or whatever the default font is. Um, and then there's a toggle on the nav bar in terms of light and dark mode. I don't think we did that last week either. So I did a little bit of work after last week in terms of just getting it to look kind of how I wanted to. So last week we published to Posit Connect Cloud, and that's done just through our studio. A few weeks ago we walked through how to set that up, and it's really straightforward, really easy. Um, and so take a look at that session a couple weeks ago if you're interested in it. Actually, for everything that we do on these weekly sessions, if you're interested in a topic, look at the following week, because the following week does this kind of recap. That's where you're going to find the most probably utility. But once you are set up, there's this publish button within our studio that you'll see probably in a couple places. So you'll see it in your preview pane. You'll also see it in your scripting environment. And we did that last week. So there's a link here to what we did last week. You can see we left some R code in there. There's a picture, there's a discography, that had a link to a YouTube video that we have, and then there was a little calendar. So not much on there in terms. Oh, we also found an image of a Yeti, and we put an image of a Yeti on there. Now, don't ask me why we put an image of a Yeti. I was kind of, I don't. As I talk and try to do stuff, I'm not always paying as careful attention as I probably should be. We moved it to GitHub, and on GitHub, did update the font, so there's going to be a different font on there. I did put those social media links that are specified in the YAML specification. And then I added a DT table as well. So I added a DT table to that discography section. So the GitHub page now, it looks a little different. You'll see the fonts are different. I added some individual pictures as well. Here on the bottom, you can see the uh, the what do you call footer. You can see the footer and how that's actually rendered on this page. You can see that the information is fairly responsive. I probably could have done those individual pictures differently. I did that as a column specification within Quarto, and there's different ways to do it. So, for example, if you're on a device that gets really narrow, that these will stack instead of staying next to each other. So that's something, if I want to work on this, probably could do. The DT table is here. So I chose how many entries to show by default. These are some songs that we play in the band. If someone came across this and wanted to know, do you play ZZ Top? You can just, look for ZZ Top. Here locally, there's a band in the Minneapolis Twin Cities area. They're actually from Austin, so closer to Iowa, but their name's the Gear Daddies. If we want to see if we play the Gear Daddies, we can look that up. So I added that. And then I guess the other thing I mentioned that there is a hyperlink self-referential here on the footer. So if you hit that, it'll just go to a contact page, and then that goes to our guitar player. Okay, so that's last week. So last week was building a website and building our website from scratch. We did most of it on air. Like I said, there are a few things that I did in the interceding week, but literally I didn't spend more than, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes on those things. So it's really easy to get up and published and out there for other people to access. So if you haven't played with a website, play with it. It's fun. I'm probably tonight or tomorrow, I'm probably going to take down the one that we did last week just because I don't know. I'm not going to do anything with it. There's no sense in actually having it up there other than letting people that access last week's stream see what it looks like. But again, moving forward, we're going to keep it on that GitHub hosted site. Okay, so tonight, what I thought we could take a look at is something a little more aligned with what we traditionally do on these weekly shows, and that is let's just look for a capability and check it out. And so the capability that we're going to check out tonight is folding. Now, folding, my awareness of folding using Quarto, and again, Quarto is the piece of software published by Posit, the company that gives us RStudio and also gives us lots of capabilities, especially capabilities surrounding what we do here weekly, which is trying to use R, or the same environment that we script our R analysis in, trying to use that to create not just analyses and summaries and manipulations of data, but also craft the broader narrative around the analyses themselves. And so within Quarto, there's always been code folding, and code folding, you can see operative here. So code folding, there's a hyperlink if you're interested in learning a little bit about that. But it's one of its applications is in a teaching context. If you want to give, for example, students or people who are trying to learn a language, if you want to have something available for them, but not just in their face, you can give them access to it through something like this. So you engage with it if you want to see how this number was actually produced. And this is a silly example, but we assign 10.5 to an object X, and then we have an object Y, then we do a manipulation, and then we ask for it to be printed, and that's what you actually see. Now, this kind of hidden and showing thing as I was thinking about it and trying to figure out if this extension really is focused on something new or if it's a capability that maybe I'm just not thinking about properly. I remember also seeing this within code block, or I'm sorry, callout blocks. So you can also collapse callout blocks. So we'll do we'll do code folding tonight. We'll also do as I gotta get my new as I stumble over words here. We gotta get our friends in here to kind of check me on
What?
this. There's music in the back of Skeletor. I don't think there is in our other one.
What?
Yeah, that's better. So Vader, I don't know. I may have to. I was gonna put those together, but I may have to do a little work before that happens. We'll check out code folding. We'll also check out collapsing callout blocks or callouts themselves. But then we'll also check out the what here I'm calling accordion content or accordion folding, and this is enabled through an extension. So we're gonna again want to work in a project directory. That's the easiest way to deal with these extensions, to use the capability of the extension. And this is it's simply having the user, having the person who's engaging with your product need to interact with your product in order to access some additional information. So I just played with it a little bit this week prior to tonight. And the main thing I did was I wanted to see if we could have, not just text in there, but also some more kind of advanced kind of things. All right, so let's check that out. So I have a hyperlink here to this is located on a GitHub repository. Roy Francis came up with this. I'm not sure who Roy is. I didn't do any sort of cyber stalking on Roy, but there is some good information in the repository here about what it is, what it does, and how to use it. Now, what I'm seeing primarily here is the author seems to think that people are going to want to uh, that people might want to introduce the content of their accordions, and I'm just going to call them accordions because that's what the extension's called. I'm not sure if that's the right name for this capability or not. It's just kind of collapsed or not. Collapsible is accordion sounds better than collapsible. I will give old Roy that. So one way in which you can specify the content is within your YAML. Within your YAML, you can say, all right, the first accordion, this is what I want it to be. The thing that you see that might have hidden content under it is called here. Click here to view contents. And then what you actually see when you engage with it is here in the body. And then there's an ID field as well. And if we have time tonight, I think we'll play with that. I would assume we can probably cross-reference off of this ID, but I don't know that. I haven't tried that. But I assume that's what it's there for. The other possible reason it's there is to help with, since these are HTML, this is going to be most people are going to be most interested in using this if they're creating an HTML product. So either a web page or a book, an online book, or one of these reveal just slides like I use on a weekly basis. So the other thing that ID might be helpful for is linking directly to that off of within a book or within a website or within a reveal just slide. But I would imagine that we can probably cross-reference that as well, which is probably what I'm most interested in. Okay, so there is some more information here that you can link to and see if you'd like in terms of versions. It's on version 1.1.2, and I haven't looked at that before, so I'm not sure all of what's on there. I did see that this is going to be operative within PDF and typist formats as well, so I'm curious to see what that actually looks like. So let's just play with it here. So I am going to look for his install statement. Here it is. So Quarto add Roy Francis, Quarto accordion. So within R, let's do a new project. And again, the extensions are going to be most easily findable without you needing to do anything more, if we're working within a project directory, uh, we'll use, I should use an existing one, um, but I'm not going to. I'm going to put it in a spot that I don't really care about so much. So I'm going to put it on my desktop, and we can call it Accordion because we're not very creative. And we wait for it. And as we wait for it to spool, we can play one of our favorite drops here. Oh, it's spooled, so I don't need to play a drop. You know what? Let's play one. Okay, so creating that project directory just gives me this rproj file, and that's gonna be important within RStudio. But normally you don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything with it. It's just kind of there. That's unique to RStudio. It's not going to be there in other IDEs. But why am I in my? What am I looking for here? I want to copy the install again. We already did it, but I just want to show it again. I'm going to go to my terminal because what we are going to paste is not a R command, it's a Quarto command. And that's one of the reasons you get to engage with the terminal. If you don't have a terminal pane in your session, just go to Tools in RStudio and ask for a new terminal that will give you the same access that I have here. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. After that, do we trust the authors? Yes. His name's Roy. I don't know any Roys that I would not trust. Following changes will be made. This is kind of standard Quarto installation messaging. So even though you don't have anything currently in this project folder, the change that's made is just it's going to be putting stuff in there. So we'll go ahead and say yes. We'd like to continue. View documentation. One of these days, okay. So one of these weeks, we've done 132 of these sessions. For the most part, it's been a different topic every week. Now, that's not entirely true because some topics spill over and we've had multiple weeks covering the same topic. But for the most part, every topic covers one or maybe a few weeks. Now, one of these weeks, I should probably waste a session on just reading documentation. How would that be for content? Now, I try to be somewhat entertaining here, or what in my mind is kind of entertaining for someone that's just sitting here coding in R, because I'm a little bit aware that you're out there and it's like, why would I be watching this guy? Um, but how entertaining would that be, watching me read documentation? So maybe we won't do it. We're not going to do it now, so we're not going to do it right now anyway. But now we see that we have a underscore extensions folder placed within our project folder and buried within there. That's actually, there's quite a bit of content here for this capability. So I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that much anyway. But let's go ahead and create a new file. Let's do a presentation, and we'll switch back and forth with kind of different things. But let's go ahead and first of all, a lot of these extensions you need to, within the YAML, within the front matter of your document, of your QMD file, many of these extensions you need to recognize or call out the extension within the YAML. This extension, you don't need to do that. So this extension, I kind of like that aspect of it, actually, that you don't need to say up here there's a filter or extension or add-on. No, you don't need any of that. If we specify the content within the YAML, we can call it out here. What I was doing that I think I would probably be more likely to do is to use this. Again, this is in a shortcode format, and so 2 weeks ago I'm very glad we did that session because I learned quite a bit. I didn't even know they're called shortcodes until we did that session. But this double curly bracket and then angle bracket convention includes something called a shortcode. And so the structure of many of these extensions is the reason I wanted to do it, as I was seeing more and more of that structure within documents. So I call it folding. So we're going to use that shortcode kind of structure convention and put one in here into this slide. So right now it's just boilerplate template. It's what you get from Quarto that helps you kind of start if you want to start from scratch. Let's go ahead and, well, let's just build one instead of copying what they have. So we'll call it accordion, probably spell accordion wrong. And then we have, let me see the structure of it here. I think it's body, and then there's not a whole lot in here, is there, for examples? Looks like header and body. So this is multiple. We don't need multiple, so they kind of concatenate things here. I'm going to look for a simpler example of using what's called inline specifications here instead of in the YAML. Wow, this looks a little intimidating. That's a lot. I want to see. Here we go. Here's something that's more aligned with what I'm looking for. The header content is here, and then the body is here, and that's all we really need. So it looks like header and body are called out specifically. The operator there is just a single equal sign, and then we have quotes or double quotes. Usually those are interchangeable, so we'll try that as well. So accordion header, we'll say, hey there, good looking. We'll try some special characters, some exclamation points, and then body equals and double quotes, what you got cooking. We'll try some special characters again. Now I didn't see a lot of, actually I didn't see any in the extension itself. I didn't see any kind of formatting options in terms of color and things like that. But there's our, so by default what's happening there is, I don't know if I like that or not. So without engaging with it, it doesn't look, it doesn't really stand out much on its own. If I do engage with it, it does stand out. So it becomes blue, and then this arrow points down or up. Now we should be able to do a default on here as well. So default is, I'm sorry, we should be able to specify collapse in terms of whether it initially comes in collapsed or not. So let's take a look and see if we can find that. Multiple accordions, we can have multiple of them. We get multiple of them within kind of stacked within each other. I don't know why I have such a hard time saying that word stacked. Oh, okay, collapsed. So it looks like we're looking for collapsed. Now you'll note that the syntactic structure here within the YAML is they're using colons, whereas with the inline code we're using equals signs. Now it's something that happens across different capabilities that I've noticed, kind of using these different ways of structuring your work. So let's actually, I'm going to leave it like this, expecting that we'll get thrown an error or something won't work. But let's actually see. So my expectation is that collapse colon false would work fine in the YAML, but it's not going to be operative. There we go. So that's good. I mean, that's nice that we get this error, and it's a very descriptive error. It says doesn't like that. That's awesome, actually. That's probably Roy's doing, I would imagine. So let's try collapsed equals or plus. And we might have to put false in double quotes also. I don't know. Okay. So there it is. So false comes through where it's not. I almost wish that would have been reversed in terms of the structure of it. That seems a little odd in terms of the wording, but true is the condition where it's hidden, I guess. Maybe hidden. Hidden would make more sense than collapsed, I'm thinking. But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so false, and that's that's the main kind of thing we can do with these. Let's see how this looks within an HTML page and a typist document and a PDF document, and then we'll see if we can maybe hyperlink to it, and then we'll also see if we can engage with some CSS to get it looking different. Now, the one thing about the collapse false is it stands out a lot more. So it looks like a callout. So I don't know, I kind of like that. I I do the one thing that if I were to use this, the one thing I would play with, I think a little bit is the just kind of innocuousness of it. Other than there's a very slight border around it, and then there's that button on the right that's really a little more kind of noticeable, and that's the piece. The whole thing, the whole bar is you can engage with it, but the arrow is kind of the one that's really signifying that something else is going on here. Now, I did mention that you can put more content in here, so when I put in an image, I think I still kept these. I think I still kept the double quotes. So let's look for an image of, what do we say? Hey, good looking. We'll do a 1920s flapper cartoon. We'll make sure it's like safe here for everyone. So we'll do, there we go. Oh, here's a dancing one. Here's Ella Fitzgerald. Although it says Shutterstock, I don't like that. I don't know why I don't like Shutterstock, but I just don't like it. So I'm going to copy that image address. I mean, I get nothing against Shutterstock. I don't even know who they are. I just don't like it when the images say Shutterstock on them. So I'm going to paste that in. And you can see our studio is recognizing it, but we'll see if it shows up in our document. Now we have collapsed equals true, so as a rendered document, it's going to come through without showing anything. Now, if we want to go da 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 da, do I have any kind of drum roll? I thought I had a drum roll here somewhere. I might need a drum roll. Do I have anything like a drum roll? Sorry, I thought that had a drum roll on it. There we go. Hey, good looking. Look at that. Now, one thing, kind of a cool cartoon actually, except for the watermark in it. Now, one thing I didn't try is we can see if we can kind of modify that a little bit. So I'm going to put an attribute on it here and just see if we can modify the height. Now, if that works, that's super, super cool. I mean, even if it doesn't work, that's still really neat. Whoa, it went away. Okay, definitely didn't like that. Probably didn't like that because I have these curly brackets within curly brackets, and so that's just verboten. So we'd have to play with that a little bit. So maybe we're not going to find that out in the next 10 minutes, but that's something that I can definitely take a look at over the course of the next week and see if I can modify images, particularly in terms of things like dimensions, because that's something that I could see people wanting to do. Now I'm going to take the collapse off of this because we're going to see what this looks like in typist and PDF documents. The other thing I guess I could do to show you the types of errors that are common within shortcodes is these spaces tend to be important. So on line 8 here, at the end of line 8, between my closing double quote and my angle bracket, if I delete that space, my expectation is I might not get the effect here. So spaces tend to be important within shortcodes. This one, okay, so this one looks like it's a little more forgiving. As Vader might say, the Emperor is not as forgiving as he is, or forgiving. So that's cool. We can actually do that. I know with some of the other extensions I use, you can't actually do that. It's not as forgiving. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like in Typist. I was surprised that this capability is actually there, it's probably just going to show the whole thing, I would imagine. Yeah, there it is. So it shows it not collapsed, collapsed. What? Yeah, not collapsed. So it shows it not collapsed. There, the formatting here, the toolbar kind of thing on at the top of it is not shown at all. PDF will probably render similarly. It'll just take a little longer, and there's probably going to be some slight formatting differences there in terms of the rounding of it, the breadth of it, maybe even the color of it, or how much it stands out. Now that actually went fairly fast. So in the typist document, it was on the third page, I think. So there it's on the, hey, look at that. We get a, that is different. I kind of like it better. So normally I like typist renderings better, but we get this dotted line here between the header and the content. I don't know why, but I like the dotted line. I like it. Okay. So let's see if we can maybe do a little CSS tweaking on it. We got a little bit of time here. So let's see if we can do some CSS tweaking. So I'm going to render as an HTML, and then we're going to inspect that object and see if we can do something to it. I don't really know. I don't know how this is going to be identified. I don't know HTML. So this is kind of something that, ooh, there we go. So, okay, so let's feed this into an AI, which is, I'm such a student now. I'm such a cheater. But I think this is the proper way to use AI. And again, I'm using the, the AI that I've kind of started to gravitate toward as my first go-to. I think Grok is getting quite a bit better with this. And we'll say we're using a Quarto extension called Accordion by Roy. Sorry, Roy, I forgot who Roy was already. Roy, I forgot your last name, Roy. Where are you, Roy? Let me find Roy. There's too much going on here. So, you know what? I'm going to go to my slides again because I do have a hyperlink in those slides. I keep telling you, I'm like, use the slides. And then I forget to use them. So there we go. Here's a link to Roy Francis. And we'll go ahead and put that hyperlink in here as well. I'd like to alter the image of the accordion in my HTML file. Can you help generate some CSS that will make the background red, blue? So we'll just start with something here. It might ask us to inspect the element, so it might tell us that we need to give it more information, but we'll see what it comes up with. Again, I've been fairly impressed with what it's doing. So this is a lot. All right, let's. I'm just going to take that entire CSS block, and we're going to add it to our document. I'm going to put it in as a code chunk, but instead of R or Python or Julia or anything else, I'm just going to call it CSS. And so CSS, we also don't want to echo that. So I'm just going to, in the YAML, I'm going to put a couple of specifications here. I usually do just kind of over the course of years, I set echo warning and message all the files if you don't want your rendered document to have a ton of content kind of echoed and messing it up a little bit. So we'll see if, hey, it worked. Grok, you're doing a great job. So, and we can amend this really easy if we want to change this to we haven't done badass for a while. So badass, it looks like bad is another kind of lilac-y color. So the border should be lilac-y. Now we'll see if this does affect what we have here or if it affects. It looks like this is affecting a few different elements. So I'm getting some blue bled into the actual expanding as well, and certainly the border specification. So I'm just gonna, again, not knowing CSS, there's there's multiple spaces here where color is specified. I'm just gonna start with the top one and see if that has an effect. And I'm not sure. Yeah, it looks like it didn't. So it looks like I'll probably have to just go one by one. There's a third one here we can try. So it looks like it's calling it button. Yeah. So button collapsed versus not collapsed. That's kind of cool. So I like this. So this is something that I would definitely play with. So we probably want something like a lighter blue when it's not collapsed. This is the stuff I get geeked out about. I love it. So we'll do a lighter blue when it's not collapsed. Maybe this one. What is that? ADE8F4. It's a very, very specific color. So we're going to try, what did I say? ADE8F4. And so that should be a lighter blue when it's folded, and then a darker blue when it's expanded. I actually kind of like that reversed, so I'm going to change those. I don't know. This is fun. I don't know why, but it's fun. It can also, you can see where this can be. I'm saying people should use this to structure their work if you're engaging with if you're engaging with data and needing to create reports and things like that. And then you can also see where it can be a complete time suck where you're like, ooh, I want to change this, I want to change that. Now, we're not going to stay here all day. So one thing I will do is, because of that very light blue that we have, I probably want to change also the color of the text. So we can change that. I can put a hex in here if I want, or I can just say black. I think the hex for black is just 0. So we can put that in. And now when I engage with the callout, not only is the background changing, but the text color is changing as well. I love it. I'm going to have fun with this. All right, so I'm going to play with these accordions a little bit. I think I'm going to try to find a reason to use these within different projects that I have. Maybe I'll put, you know what, I'll put one on the band website. I don't know why or how, but we'll put one on there just to put one on there. And, and then the rest of the band will probably kick me off and say, no, you're not doing the website anymore because you're fooling around with stuff too much. It's not your playground, Dr. Koulas. They don't call me Dr. Koulas. All right, everybody, thanks. If there's something you want to see next week, let me know. Otherwise, I will just kind of putter around and find another capability, and we'll check out that capability together, kind of like we did this week. Okay, thanks, everybody. Have a good week.